It's awesome to see. I'm surprised everyone's not still sleeping. I know they were worried about that. It's awesome to be here. And I think to John's point, give yourselves a round of applause. This is like a cheap way to get people engaged, by the way. If you're not. Give yourselves a round of applause for being awake and being ready. And that happens here at Nexa. I got to tell you, we've been partners for a long time. And being engaged, I think, is a hallmark of this organization. And we're certainly proud to be partnered with you guys. So, when I get up here and I do these things, I always talk about being prepared, and I'm never prepared for this stuff. But maybe I am, and more on that in a minute. But so I said to Jenny yesterday, what am I talking about? What's the theme? And she said, it's the market minute. And I said, not the market minute, the market mindset. Because those of you that follow me on the gram, El Presidente _EPM, El Presidente _EPM if you don't. El Presidente _EPM, just in case you missed that. I do the Mancuso Market Minute coming at you like a freight train. And so the market mindset, what am I talking about? And I'm like, I guess things I love, the market, a winning mindset, and me. So all right, I could pull this thing off. So without further ado, let's talk about a winning mindset and how you can kind of blend the market into that. One of the common traits that I've found among successful people, among successful businesses, is that they're able to differentiate themselves. That differentiating factor creates value. And we talk so much about price and rates and fees, and it just seems to be, this elephant in the room, this 800-pound gorilla that so burdens loan officers. And I was fortunate enough to really break those shackles of trying to sell in this industry. Everybody always being obsessed by rate, being obsessed by price. And how I did that was by becoming an expert in the markets. It was a passion of mine, and it was a differentiator. When folks would call me, I'd be sort of so studied about what's going on, so educated about what drives interest rates, that I was able to talk in a certain way, in a certain vernacular, with a certain sense of expertise, that folks would say, that's different. The other folks that I've spoken with, the other companies, the other loan officers, they didn't have this level of insight. And for me, that was my differentiator. I think it's important for you to find yours. But why am I here? I'm here to talk about the market. So I'm going to tell you that should be your differentiator. And so consequently, when a borrower would want to talk to me about rate, I talk about non-farm payroll. When they wanted to talk to me about fees, I talked to them about ISM. And a crazy thing happened. At a certain point, they stopped asking me about rate. They no longer cared about fees. Because the assumption was that because I knew what I was talking about, and I knew what I was talking about at an order of magnitude greater than my competitors, that the rate and the fees were almost assumed. That's creating value. Understanding who your competitors are, what they're going to say, what your strengths are, what their weaknesses are, vice versa. That's what winners do. A losing mindset is focusing on all of their strengths and all of your weaknesses. So, what were one of the things that allowed me to kind of differentiate myself from my competitors by sort of hanging on to what I felt was this core competence? Well, by the way, I go back to home sits in 1988. Who here has actually done a home sit? Just out of curiosity, show of hands. I don't think anybody. So what a home sit is that we used to have these things called phone books, and these people called telemarketers. And telemarketers would call people from these phone books and say, hey, would you like a loan officer to come out and talk to you about mortgages? They didn't quite say it that way, but I don't have a lot of time. And then they'd make an appointment, and you'd go into someone's house, and you'd sit, maybe, unless they threw you out. And so that's why it was called a home sit. And so if I got on the phone with someone or I got in front of someone, you know, when you sort of understand what moves people to action, you know, a question that I might have for you when we talk about competition, when we talk about the mindset of someone that's not a winner. I don't want to say a loser, but someone that's not a winner. Well, someone that's a loser. Right, is that they're afraid of competition. Winners lean into competition. Go outside on the street and to your, you know, the nearest gas station. What do you see across the street from that gas station? Another gas station. What do you see across the street from McDonald's, Burger King? Great salespeople understand that the choice isn't do you want to buy. The choice is me or you. The choice is not do you want to buy. The choice is me or you. When can you speak? Tuesday or Wednesday? 12 or 1? That's powerful. The moment you understand that, the moment you stop justifying your existence and assuming the sale, the moment you become competent around why you exist, then the mindset of a winner is, I just want my fair share. And the better I do, the bigger my share will be. Who the hell wants to pitch people that don't need a mortgage? What's the point in that? You have to convince somebody why it makes sense to do business with a broker. Why? Do they or don't they want a mortgage? If they do, you have to create the value for them to pick you. So, if I get a phone call or a lead, the first thing I would do is understand what's happening in the financial markets that day. And I'd use that as a catalyst to communicate why today was the best day in the history of the world. I don't know, everybody's calling me today. The Fed's making an announcement on rates tomorrow. I assume that that's why you're calling me. Now, guess what? They were either calling me because they knew the Fed was coming out with a decision, or they're too embarrassed to say they didn't know that was happening. Either way, I've got them. Because the one thing I could control is that I knew more about what was happening that day than anyone else that they were going to talk to. Couldn't control their decision, couldn't control the timing of it, can't control my rates, although I do now. I do set rates for EPM. But I couldn't control my rates. Stop complaining to your cap markets people, your investors, about their shitty rates. You can't control it any more than they can, by the way. That is not a winner's mindset. There are many people that have done better than they've ever done in this up-rate market because they are transformational leaders, not transactional leaders. So, you must be calling because the Fed's making a decision. Yeah. Right? So is everybody else. This is what I see. This is what I think you should do. This is going to be the outcome. I'm about 80% confident. Great. Sale. Don't have to talk to you about how my rate's better, your rate's better. Doesn't matter after you establish value. But wait, somebody said no. Yes, they're going to say no. No sales technique is intended to be 100% successful. Trait of a winner. A winner's willing to lose battles to win a war. A winner is willing to make mistakes. Comeback's better than the setback. Winners have to fail. Because if you don't fail, you don't appreciate the win. What propels success is the next obstacle, the next goal, the next win. That win is sweeter when you fail. Most winners remember the failures, but not in a way that inhibits their future success, in a way in which they learn what worked, what didn't work. What I found in establishing my competence, my differentiating factor, that I think especially today in this sort of social media society that we're in, is that there needs to be substance behind it. And so often we just sort of regurgitate. And the understanding of the difference between the mastery of something and just sort of the regurgitation of it or the memorization of it is important. And why is that? You're going to make plenty of sales if you just sort of inform people. There's no doubt about it. But that's not necessarily repeatable, because what we've already established is that you're not going to be successful in 100% of your pitches. So now, once you establish sort of your baseline, your next goal is, how do I increase upon that baseline? And the way you do it is by further differentiation. Instead of sort of talking about the market, making the market. Some ways in which you can do that, right? CRMs. So it's interesting. Everybody talks about a CRM. Everybody kind of uses CRM, but do we really use it? And how do you plug in the rates? And what's your plan? And what do you think the trajectory of the market is? And when do you need to be in front of the borrower at the point of sale? Here, show of hands, just out of curiosity. Forget about rates for a second. For those of you that do purchase money mortgages, how many of you on every single transaction follow up with both realtors, both lawyers, both title companies, any accountants that are in the deal? How many of you do that every single time? Show of hands. 20 of you? Stop it. Everybody. Everybody must do that. That's a multiplier. Incredibly powerful. Why don't we do it? I'm on to my next pitch. Transactional. Winners aren't transactional. If it means you got to get in a little bit earlier, if it means you got to stay a little bit later, that's what it takes. You know, that's been something that to me, not to sound like the old guy on the porch, but that's different than when I got into this business in '88. We're so unable at times to sort of delay gratification, which also trait of a winner. Pay our dues. We want it now. It's not the way you build a sustainable business. It's not the way you build a sustainable book. In fact, I tell you, fuck the next pitch. Call the 6 people. I could only write 1 loan on that pitch. I could write 6 if I follow up with those people today. Now, winner's going to do both. And then they're going to do both tomorrow, and then all 4 the next day. So, let's talk about this for a second. How are we going to solve for this problem that I quite craftily created for you guys? Sales is, I touched on this at TAG if you were at TAG, and we're rolling it out here today. We're going to put a QR code on one of these screens. I'm going to do a market huddle every single day for the industry. Free. You can participate. And you're going to be behind the scenes. I'm going to be at my desk looking at a screen talking about the data. If you've consumed my content, elpresidente_EPM, you know that even though everybody says you got to do a minute every day, and sometimes I don't do it, it's because, are we putting the QR code up on the screen, by the way, or what are we doing here? Okay. So, so I don't do them every day because I want these things to be meaningful. I don't want it to, hey, non-farm payroll just came out. You're too late, right? Can't make money that way. You make money in speculation. You make money by calling the shot before it happens. But here's what we're going to do every single day. It's going to be 5-10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, depending on how big the day is. I'm going to walk you through the logic of how we're going to trade our position that day. Right? I'm going to begin to show you the ropes on what goes into the pricing of the loan, the underlying coupons, MBS, spec pools. Help you become an expert in this matter. For some of you, maybe that's your differentiator. For others, maybe it's just a tool in your toolbox. Doesn't matter. Winning is about being competent. Winning is about being able to stand in front of people and talk about any particular subject intelligently. Because it's about them, not about you. You don't know what they want to speak about. They want to talk about their kid's soccer game? Figure that out. Talk about their soccer game. But we're going to do this every day. We're going to open it up to some questions in the chat. We're going to record it, so if you want to send it to your customers about why the Fed cut rates and rates are going up, all that good stuff. Not going to get any data today because of the government shutdown. But what we hope to accomplish with this, what I know we'll accomplish with this, is help to put you in a position to where you can manufacture the content, not just regurgitate mine or someone else's. Make you a true expert and differentiate yourself from everyone else. So have a great NEXAFEST. You guys are going to crush it. Love you.